So page 8, number 17, the volume of this figure. If you look at the top, what kind of figure is the top section of this? Not a triangle. Triangle is two-dimensional. This is a three-dimensional object. Melvin, come on. Cone, right. And what about this bottom section? What do we call that? Cylinder. So I need to find the volume of each of those separately and then put those together. So the volume of a cone is 1/3 times pi r squared h. 1/3 pi r squared h. The cylinder, the volume is pi r squared times h. Okay? So, looking at this, give me just a second. I want to make sure that first one's right. I think it's h. I don't think it's the slant height. 8 instead. Let me see if I did this one yet. Wow. Where did I go? That's not it. That's not up at the front. Okay, hang on. I know a quicker way to look. Volume of a cone, 1/3 pi r squared h. Yep, I was right. Okay. So, what is my radius here? What is the radius of the cone? What is the radius of the cylinder in this image? It is 5, yes. So the volume of the cone is going to be 1/3 times pi times my radius, which is 5 squared, times what is the height of the cone? What is it? 3. So this is the height. It doesn't say slant height. If they wanted slant height, they would put the cursive L. So that is times 3. Okay? Now, as I look at this, we know that any whole number can be put over 1. So 1/3 times 3 over 1, that's in the denominator, that's in the numerator. Those are going to cancel out. And I'm left with pi times 5 squared. Well, 5 squared is 25. And I'm just going to move pi to the other side. So that answer is 25 pi. So on your calculators, 25 times pi, what are we going to get? Oh, here's my stuff. What are we going to get for 25 times pi? Use your calculators. Come on. Hey, come on. Melvin, take out your packet and let's try to follow along a little bit. What are we getting, guys? Okay. 78.539. All right, so then that's the volume of the cone. So now we look for the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r squared. That is still the same radius, because if it comes straight down, that still is going to be 5 meters. So times 5 squared. And what is the height of my cylinder? 8. So times 8. So pi times 25 times 8. 25 times 8 is going to be 200 pi. So now you can take 200 times pi. You can always just multiply these out though too and say pi times 5 squared times 8. And it should be a little over 600. Well, maybe a little bit more. Who's got the answer? 0.318. Okay. So that is the volume of your cylinder. Add those together. 9 and 8, 17. 1, 3, 5. 5, 8. 5 and 3 is 8. 8 and 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 8 and 8 is 16. So I got 760.857. I'm going to say 760.86. It doesn't tell me to round, but I just am. What are my units? Meters cubed, because it's volume. Remember, when you're finding volume, you're trying to figure out how many little cubes fit in that. Okay? All right. Okay, now let's jump to page 11. Page 11, and let's get to the quadratics. All right, and mine happens to be cut off and on the opposite page, which is really annoying. But we are looking at the equation negative 4x squared minus 5x plus 9 equals 0. Now, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to be going through this quickly because you hopefully have learned a good chunk of this, and I want to try to get through as much of this as I can, okay? All right, so my A value is negative 4. My B value, negative 5. Yes, you do have to look at the signs. And my C value is 9. You can only find this when you make sure it's equal to 0. Yes? Page 11, I think. Is this page 11 on yours? Yeah. Find the discriminant, okay? I don't know if we'll tell you what the discriminant is, but we will give you the quadratic formula, and the discriminant is under the radical sign. It's b squared minus 4ac. And because this is set to 0, that's why I know all of these values of a, b, and c are correct. So b is negative 5, and I need to square it, minus 4 times a is negative 4 times c is 9. You have to put a negative in parentheses when you square it. So negative 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times negative 4 is negative 16, and negative 16 times 9 is going to be negative 144. Well, it's negative here, but I can't have a double negative, so it will become plus a positive. Yes. Well, this went to my minus sign, and here I have 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 times a positive 9 gave me the negative 144. So you're subtracting a negative, which we can't do, and that's why I changed it to adding the opposite. Did you follow that very well? Kind of? Okay. So this gives me 169, and that is my discriminant. That is a positive value. When you have a positive value in the discriminant, you have 3 choices. You're either going to have 2 real roots, 1 real root, or no or 0 real roots. So since it's positive, how many real roots should I have? 2, 1, or 0? Should have two real roots, okay? All right, number 2, when you solve for a quadratic, what number does the equation have to be equal to? 0, yes, always. And what's the first step when we start to factor? What do? Look for a GCF. Good. So when you're solving, you have to set it equal to 0. Look for a GCF. Number 3, we're looking at this graph. It says use the graph of the quadratic at the right. Assume a is equal to 1. A is the coefficient in front of the x squared term. It usually tells you if it's positive that your parabola is opening up. If it's negative, it's opening downward. It also tells you how wide your parabola is going to be if it's a fraction, or how narrow when it's stretching up to be a integer.
How many roots was it?
The last one was 2. For 1C is 2. All right, so identify the following regarding the quadratic function. The a value of this parabola, is it positive 1 or negative 1? Positive, because it's opening upward, right? What are my roots in this graph? No? -3 and 2. Yeah, look carefully at those. So that's a -3 and 2. And we put them like this. Now they want us to write this in factored form. Right here is your factored form. Okay? So we start with y equals, what was my a value? What did we say it was? 1. So that goes out front. Times parenthesis x minus my first root. What's my first root? -3 times x minus my second root, which is 2. Now, the only thing I need to change here, you can't have a subtracting a negative, so this changes to +3. This has to do kind of with the opposite, if you remember. Opposite. Because it looks like my root is a -3, but when you put it in factored form, it becomes +3. My root here looks like a +2. In factored form, it's going to look like a -2. Okay? All right. What questions do you have on that part? All right, let's jump to 4. Use the quadratic equation to answer the following questions. Be sure to show all work to receive credit. So here's my quadratic. Can I go ahead and look for A, B, and C? Yes? No? I saw some up and down shakes of the head, and I heard some no's. Why yes, why no? Come on, duke it out, man. It's not equal to 0. So I need to move this -8 over here mathematically. How do I do that mathematically? Add 8. Add 8 to the other side of the equal sign. So now I have 0 on the right. And on the left, I have 7x squared minus 3x. And -5 plus 8 gives me +3. +3. Now it's equal to 0, and I can put in and find my A, B, and C. So A is 7, B is -3, and C is 3. Find the discriminant. The discriminant, we said, is b squared minus 4ac. Again, make sure when you are squaring b, if it's negative, you put it in parentheses. So that is -3 squared minus 4 times my a value of 7 times c is 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. 4 times 7 is 28. And 28 times 3 is 84. So we're taking 9 minus 84, which is going to be negative 75. 4A, C. Okay. So from this answer, how many real roots am I going to have here? I'm sorry? Somebody say anything? It's a negative answer. 0 real roots or no real roots. Because if you have a negative under the radical sign, that's where you get imaginary numbers. All right. Any questions on 4? All right, I'm going to skip A. We're going to go to B. You can do A on your own if you want. Here's my B, 2x squared minus 7x equals 9. Is that good to go? No, what do I need to do? Set it equal to 0. I need to move that 9 over to the other side. How do I move it mathematically? Subtract, because it's positive now. So subtract 9 from both sides of that equation. So I get 2x squared minus 7x minus 9 equals 0. All right, it's set equal to 0. Now I can find my ABCs. A is equal to 2. B is equal to negative 7. C is equal to negative 9. When I have 3 terms and I need to factor and solve, what method am I going to use? Xbox. Xbox. X marks the spot. So I need A times C up at the top and B at the bottom. A times C is 2 times negative 9, which is negative 18, and B is negative 7. So factors of 18 are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Now I don't put the negatives on them, but one of them does have to be negative. 2 and 9, they have a difference of 7, so that looks good. Which one of those numbers is going to have the negative? The 9, yes, because the larger, the larger digited number has to have the same sign as what's on the bottom. So that's negative 9 and positive 2. So now we go to the box. And my first term goes in the first box. My last term, make sure you get the sign, goes in the last box. And the middle 2 over here add together to give me the middle, so I have to add an x to it. So it's negative 9x and 2x. So putting these together, finding my greatest common factor of the row, 2x squared and 2x. They both have 2's in common. They both have an x. The second row, negative 9x and negative 9. Greatest common factor is going to be negative 9. Then I got to look at the columns, 2x squared and negative 9x. The 2 and negative 9 don't have anything in common except for 1. And x squared and x, I can factor out an x. 2x and negative 9, this last column, numbers 2 and negative 9, the only thing they have is a 1. And you're like, is this problem done yet? Not yet. But here are my factors. 2x minus 9 times x plus 1. Am I done? No, it says to solve. We have to solve for x. Now, we already said it's equal to 0. It's still equal to 0. And when you have two numbers that, or two factors that multiply to give you 0, at least one or both has to be equal to 0. So we set each of them equal to 0 and solve for x. So take the first factor, 2x minus 9 equals 0. Add 9 to both sides. 2x equals 9. Divide by 2. And x is equal to 9 halves. That is one of your roots. On the other side, subtract 1, subtract 1. X is equal to -1. There's your other root. Questions on that? A blast from the past, right? Do we remember this kind of? Going over it now? Okay, good. All right, A is going to be very similar. I'm going to let you work on A on your own. Let's jump to C. C is a little different. It's still a quadratic. It's 16x squared minus 49 equals 0. So it's set equal to 0. That's good. How many terms do I have there? 2. What's a good shortcut we can use sometimes when we have two terms? Take a look at the sign in between. Look at 16. What kind of a number is 16 and 49? They're perfect squares, so we can take that square root. So this is the difference of two squares. And if you remember, that says that a squared minus b squared is equal to the square root of a squared, which is a minus b, times a plus b. So we need to take the square root of both of these numbers. And I'm putting the 2 there, which I didn't always do before. And you don't have to. But if you're taking the square root of something that is squared, those are just going to cancel out. And the square root of 16 is 4. And the square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 49 is 7. So this is my a value right here, and this is going to be my b value. So I am going to say 4x minus 7 times quantity 4x plus 7 equals 0. Because it was set equal to 0 already. We need to solve. So I say 4x minus 7 equals 0, 4x plus 7 equals 0. Add 7, 4x equals 7. Divide by 4. X is equal to 7/4. That's one root. Then on the other side, subtract 7. 4x equals -7. Divide by 4. X is equal to -7/4. Questions on C. That is a difference of two perfect squares. So that's when you use that shortcut formula. Letter D, you should be able to do on your own. Let's jump quickly to number 6, where we have to use the quadratic formula. Sometimes these quadratic trinomials do not work with Xbox. Xbox does not work every single time, okay? Sometimes you might have to use the quadratic formula. So we need to solve this. So we're looking for x. Using the quadratic formula, we're going to write our answer as a decimal to the nearest hundredth. Gosh, they're asking for a lot. All right, so looking at A, 4x squared minus 2x minus 7 equals negative 6. They give us a hint. It says in order to solve, the equation must be equal to 0. Is it equal to 0? No. So we need to move negative 6 mathematically. So I'm going to add 6 and add 6 on either side of the equation. Now I'm going to set it equal to 0 and get 4x squared minus 2x, and then negative 7 plus 6 is going to be minus 1. So my A is going to be 4, my B is going to be negative 2, and my C is negative 1. The discriminant. Do you guys remember what the discriminant is? It's the part underneath the radical of the quadratic formula. So it's b squared minus 4ac. So now we substitute these values into that expression and simplify. So negative 2, put it in parentheses, squared, minus 4 times my a value of 4 times c, which is negative 1. Negative 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times negative 1 is negative 16. So I'm going to subtract a negative 16, but I know we can't have that double negative. So I'm going to add the opposite. So 4 plus 16 is 20. And that is your discriminant. Okay. Now it says solve using the quadratic formula. We will definitely give you the quadratic formula. And that is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, all divided by 2a. Okay, so we start off, we say x equals the opposite of b. Well, b was negative 2, so the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, plus or minus the square root. Now remember, I said the discriminant is this part right here, and we have already solved that, right? So my discriminant is 20, and that's what's going to go underneath that radical. You don't have to calculate it again. All divided by 2 times a. A is 4, so I substitute in 4. So that means x is going to be equal to 2 plus the square root of 20 divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. And it's going to be 2 minus the square root of 20, all divided by 8. This is supposed to be an and symbol. I think I better take it out. No. Divided. All right, so on your calculators, you need to put 2 plus the square root of 20, and you need to hit enter to get just the numerator, and then divide by 8. Where's the square root? Okay, square root is the second button and the x squared. See, because it's in green above that, that's when you use the second button.
Why did you write it twice?
Because this one it can be plus or minus. So this one is the plus and this one is the minus. Good question if you're not sure. All right, so what'd you get for the first decimal? Very good, 0.809. They asked us to round to the hundredths place. So which digit is in the hundredths? It would be the 0. Look next door. If it's 5 or more, it's going to go up. So this is 0.81. And how about 2 minus the square root of 20 divided by 8? Negative 0.309. Again, it asks us to go to the hundredths place. That's this 0. Look next door, 5 or more. That means this is going to increase. So this one is negative 0.31. Those are your decimal answers. Any questions on that? Shoot. All right, very quickly, I am going to bolt through these next sections, so don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me because I'm going fast. And part of mine is cut off. So if we have a positive discriminant, that means we are going to have 2 real roots. Okay, 2 real roots. What is that going to look like? It means you are going to cross the x-axis twice. If your discriminant is equal to 0, you have 1 real root. This is what we call a bounce. So your real root is on the x-axis. It could be going down too. And when we have a negative root, we have 0 real roots or no real roots. And it could be either going up or it could be going down. But it is not going to cross the x-axis at all. Okay. And I'm going to do one of these last ones. I'm going to do the second one because I did the first one in the first video. It says solve, so I am looking for x, using the square root property. You are not going to set this equal to 0 when you use the square root property, if we tell you to use the square root property. So you take the square root here, take the square root here. The square root of something squared gives you that x minus 4 equals. Now, when you take the square root and it's by itself on the other side, it can be equal to the positive or the negative value. So I'm going to say x minus 4 equals the positive 6, and x minus 4 equals the negative 6. I need to solve for x, so add 4, x is equal to 10. Over here, add 4 and add 4 to a negative 6. X is equal to negative 2. Whew! Got it done in the nick of time. All right, for tomorrow, if you have not already, looking at circles. There's a lot of stuff in circles in this packet. So this would be Module 5. I want you to work on Module 5. If you already have 5 done, great. That would be parts of pages 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I would suggest that as your homework tomorrow, and we'll go over your questions. We, I believe, have done some of 5 with circles, okay? And keep working on that packet. If you have other questions like Jasmine did today, just ask, okay? All right, we're getting there, guys. 2 more days of review. Well, maybe 2.5. Very short classes on Monday. Like 20 minutes, I want to say. Maybe not 20 minutes. What are they? 7:15 to 8:03. Oh, that's more like... I thought they were supposed to be shorter. Maybe not. Not that much. 8:03? Maybe not. Never mind. I thought they were shorter. All right.